in the name of politics, in the name of religion, in the name of education, in the name of morality, he has been torturing people. That is his only joy. He is basically a Sadhu Masochist. This was a quote from repeating that no serious person can be enlightened. Osho refutes all existing religious beliefs. He denounces everything. Mahavira, quote from him, Mahavira, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Zarathustra, Muhammad, none of them is enlightened. Then he ridicules a South Indian goddess, a god woman, namely Amma. There is a commune. There are people, brahmacharis, means celibates of a male and female background are living there. There is a huge structure, set of flats where devotees are staying.
Hello everyone and welcome to the weekend meeting with Sanal Edamaruku. I am Shubhi Sinha from the Rationalist International, and our session for today is an Osho and his religion. The internet has been all hyped up about the Netflix Wild Country, a documentary series explaining the rise and fall of spiritual guru Rajneesh or Osho and his ideology known as Rajneeshism. This has revived interest in the man who inspired thousands of believers from across the world to leave their homes and follow him into the unknown. Who was Osho? India is certainly no stranger to the idea of the so-called Godman and the kind of cult that he left behind. Why did he have such an enormous amount of followers? What exactly is Osho philosophy? We are all curious about it, and that is exactly what I expect that Sanal sir would be speaking about today. So I would like to welcome Mr. Sanal Edamaruku to come and begin with this presentation, which will be followed by a question-answer round.
The new Indian religion, founded by the mystic who called himself initially Bhagavan Sri Rajneesh, who thought of bringing, quote, a true sense of religiousness to the earth by filling the whole earth with laughter, with dancing and singing, has more disciples outside than inside India. The controversy that this new religion triggered off through its seemingly radical views about human sexuality gave it more enemies as well. The views of this new religion deserve an impassionate and objective study. Obviously, one easily finds parallels of Bhagavan Rajneesh, as he initially called, in the tantric and tribal past of India. Relics of both are traceable in contemporary India as well. Osho, like most of the so-called prophets, always insisted that he was the only enlightened. In a discourse as late as in 1981, he said, "No Sadhu Masochist can become enlightened. And out of 100 people that you think have become enlightened, 99.9% are not enlightened." So who is a Sadhu Masochist? Quoting the story of Khalil Gibran, Osho alleges that all serious persons are Sadhu Masochists. It reads as follows, quote from Rajneesh. One day Khalil Gibran asked the scarecrow, "You have been standing here year in, year out. You must be getting very tired, very bored." And the scarecrow says, "No, I may look bored, I may look very serious, but I am enjoying my job." Khalil Gibran says, "What kind of enjoyment can you have? I didn't see anything here for you to enjoy." He says, "I have every joy of making people afraid. Gives me such a thrill. Day in and day out, I'm driving animals, birds crazy. They run away from me. I'm the supermost around here. I'm the most powerful person. Everybody is afraid of me. Don't you think that's more than one can expect from life? Quote continues from Khalil Gibran. The serious person has been doing that for centuries. In the name of politics, in the name of religion, in the name of education, in the name of morality, he has been torturing people. That is his only joy. He is basically a Sadhu Masochist. This was a quote from Khalil Gibran, which Osho has been making. Repeating that no serious person can be enlightened, Osho refutes all existing religious beliefs. He denounces everything. Mahavira, quote from him, Mahavira, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Zarathustra, Muhammad, none of them is enlightened. Then he ridicules social realities of misery. War and poverty are serious responses to human problems. All you need is to be enlightened, to be playful, to be funny. Quote, enlightened is blissfulness. It cannot be serious. It can be sincere, but notorious. It will be sheer joy. It will be pure ecstasy. Quote ends. No questioning, no asking, no education. You have to be simply playful. That is the society Osho wanted to create. The most sadistic aspect that you don't even love for, quote, love has been a misfortune, a greatest misfortune. People have not been killed because of hatred. People have been killed because of love. Life has become so bitter, not because of anger. It has become so bitter because of love, unquote. The free birds that they are, Rajneeshites or Oshoites, are forbidden to be in love. This has been a major self-contradiction in the religious philosophy of Rajneesh pertaining to love. He lashes out in utter anger against love. Quote, you are in love and it becomes serious. You start thinking of marriage and you start thinking of having children and the whole thing has gone ugly. Unquote. All what Rajneeshites have to do is being playful. And that is the prerequisite for meditation. Quote about meditation. Meditation can happen only in playfulness, in utter playfulness. When you are not searching and seeking for anything, when you are simply dancing or singing or chanting, when you are not asking, when the activity is all and all in itself, no future is provoked, no future is involved in it, then it happens. Though happiness is the key word of the philosophy of Osho religion, he ridicules the desire for happiness. Again a quote, happiness cannot be desired. Desire brings misery. Happiness is a state of no desire. Happiness is a state of great understanding that desire brings misery. Unquote. Assertiveness to life and positive efforts for the happiness of oneself and for the people at large are not seen kindly by Osho. Like any other religious leader, he asked people to accept life, not to try to change it the way you want it. He advocated utter submission to the situation around. One should not ask, try, or desire. Again a quote, there are two ways to be happy, to snatch at life or let it be. The first demands happiness, refuses all else, and so lives between hope and fear, dream and rejection. The second way takes happiness when it happens, but does not demand it and accepts all else too. There is, instead of ease of swimming with the river when the river flows. That's a famous quote from Osho. Rajneesh suggests, don't be aggressive, relax, wait prayerfully, gratefully, be receptive, be feminine, and happiness comes. Don't be male and don't be aggressive, is what he said. Though the self-styled God of the awakened, is strongly critical of love and marriage. He appreciates the love and marriage rituals of the Bastar tribe of the Madhya Pradesh state in India. The aboriginal life of the tribal people in Bastar has a serious influence on his thoughts. Incidentally, he is coming from Madhya Pradesh. He was a teacher in the Jabalpur University. That's where he was teaching philosophy. And later only he moved to Pune to start the ashram. The very structure of the communes of Bastar and the absolute non-possessiveness that he advocates find its roots from the aboriginals in the area. Paradoxically, when he speaks about the aboriginal life of the tribes, love and marriage are all beautiful. See the contradiction. The Bastar aboriginals, according to Osho, quote, this is the fundamental crux of his philosophy coming from the Bastar tribe. The quote begins, the tribes have for their children a small hall in the center of the town, their village. Once the children are getting interested in sex, the whole community's children sleep in the hall. They are allowed to make love, but nobody is allowed to move with any girl more than 3 days. So all the boys and all the girls become acquainted with all other girls and the whole tribe. And they learn non-possessiveness. Civilization demands that sexual preferences of individuals to live with one person or to be promiscuous or to be homosexual or to masturbate simply as a question of sexual preference. When two individuals are involved, they should be mutually consenting adults. If what Osho says about the Bastar aboriginals are right, the boy and girl who want to live together for a longer period because they like each other are not permitted to do so immediately. The tribal rules control them from exercising their freedom to be together. Each girl has to sleep with all boys, no freedom to select. Only for 3 days, not more than that. Osho idealizes such a situation and romanticizes its beauty. And what's the result? They don't do, quote, he says bad things. No masturbation, no homosexuality, no divorce, no illegal love affair. This is what he says. See, let's take the direct quotation from him. Quote from Rajneesh. Masturbation is not known. There is no need. These are poor people. They don't know anything about homosexuality. There is no need. And they become acquainted. All the boys become acquainted with all the girls. And all the girls become acquainted with all the boys. And only then they choose. And once they get married, their marriage has an immense beauty. And then, naturally, there is no divorce. There is no need. Quote continues, no single illegal love affair is known in the small community of Bastar aboriginals. Once a person is settled with a woman, they have settled, unquote. Before going into the authenticity of Osho's version about the tribal life in Madhya Pradesh, which he admittedly not seen, but only heard about, one has to see the self-contradiction of this idealization of tribal marriage to this total rejection of marriages. Look at the quote. If you love a woman, you should like to be with her. This is marriage. There should be no other marriage. There should not even be the idea, because the very idea makes things down to earth. The poetry is destroyed, unquote. So the strong critic of love that he was, Osho wanted his disciples to love him. He asked, This is a very interesting quote from Osho. I am not a person. You can love me. I am love. If you think of me as a person, you have not seen me yet. You are missing. There is nobody here, or only nobody is here. Look towards me as love, not as a person. While dismissing love as a natural calamity, it is between two persons. Osho justifies the love for him. Again, another quote from him. Don't think of me as a person, then there'll be inner conflict. Think of me as love, as energy, as a space, then you will dissolve in me and you can allow me to dissolve in you. Then there will be no clash. What is the special kind of love that Rajneesh or Osho asked from his disciples? He has a very clear answer. Again, a quote. That is the relationship between the disciple and the master. A non-clashing relationship. There is no conflict. There is only harmony, attunement. They move on the same wavelength. And what if you loved this master or God? Another quote. If you really love me, you will also become a non-person. Imagine, he criticized Christianity. Though he criticized Christianity with the strongest possible words, in some of Rajneesh's discourses, he offered Christians to find Jesus through him. The comparison of Osho with Jesus was cleverly propagated by his disciples everywhere. For example, during one of his last press conferences of Rajneesh Foundation, now it is known as Osho Foundation, when he was still alive, after his return from United States, this was in New Delhi, which I personally attended. And an interesting book written by Sue Appleton was distributed to the selected invitees from that in that press conference. The book entitled, Was Bhagavan Sri Rajneesh Poisoned by Ronald Reagan's America? Has a jacket with a cross printed behind the photograph of Rajneesh. He himself once declared, you will find it easier to approach Jesus through me. In another discourse, he attacks the Jews for killing Jesus and advocates to drop the Jew in you. Look at that quotation. You say, as a Jew, I could never accept his teachings. It is your Jew, not you. You can understand, but the Jew cannot understand. The Jew is one who has killed Jesus. Unquote. The problem of a rational, logic person with the biblical concept of Jesus was criticized by Osho. He says, quote, you have to see the point that it is the Jew that is disturbing you. Drop the Jew and then look again and you will find great harmony arising between you and Jesus. Now he compares Buddha and Jesus. He attacks rationality and logic of Buddha. Here is a quote again from Osho. Freud can walk with him perfectly at ease, and so can Marx walk. There is no trouble. Einstein can have a good conversation with him, and there will be no conflict. Is that an ideal situation? To him, no. Why? Again, another quote. Because it is said that while Albert Einstein was alive, only 12 people in the whole world were capable of understanding him rightly. Of course, he speaks very mathematically. But, he continues, mathematics has one meaning. 2 plus 2 are 4. There are no other levels in it. Therefore, nobody understood Einstein. And only after his death, people understood Einstein is what Osho says. So now comparing a logical treatise, which is written seriously to Bible, with quotations of Jesus, without caring a bit about its historical evolution, he claims, here is another quote, you can go on reading Jesus, saying every day, morning, evening, and always there is something new coming up, something new surfacing, because you are changing your insight of growing deeper. Your life experience is becoming more mature. You will be able to see more every day because you will grow and the scripture will grow with you. Unquote. But logic, knowledge, and education were always hated by Osho. He said, you cannot read a logic treatise again and again. Once understood, it's finished. Then there is nothing else in it. If you have understood Albert Einstein's treatise on the theory of relativity, once understood, it's finished. Going still forward, Osho vociferously propagated against the universal education, while the majority in the country where he operated, that's India, remained illiterate and underprivileged. So this is what he says about education. All do not need to be educated. That is my approach. There should be no universal education. That is a crime. That means you are forcing people who don't want to be educated. That is undemocratic. Universal education is dictatorial. No universal education, unquote. So then what should people do? For Osho, one should, again a quote, think of what you enjoy, what you most enjoy doing, and get absorbed into it. If you enjoy swimming, enjoy swimming. If you enjoy chopping wood, chop wood. Whatsoever you like, do it and get absorbed into it, unquote. Imagine, he don't want anybody to go to school, go for education, but just do whatever they wanted. The fundamental dilemma in this theory of freedom and happiness of Osho philosophy lies in the lack of freedom of choice of individuals to stay with one partner if they wished so. The tribal taboo of Madhyas of Bastar, which does not allow a girl or a boy to select each other before sleeping with all others in the tribe, was the model of the new Osho commune that he established in Pune and later in United States. In his famous discourse, there's a very famous discourse, namely The Secret of Happiness. He says in length about the Bastar tribes. To quote words from Osho, quote, they are allowed to make love, but nobody is allowed to move with any other girl for more than 3 days. At the end of the discourse, he says, that's what I would like to create in our new commune. People have to get absorbed. Osho praises the Madhya tribe because they don't know how to read. But what is there to read? They know how to read nature, he says. They know how to talk to trees. They know how to have a dialogue with the sky. They know real reading because they read the book of life and nature. If one simply listens to what Osho spoke about Madhya tribe and about the paradise in Bastar forest, he can certainly be mistaken. The highest murder rate in India, in the southern part of Bastar, where the Madhya aboriginals live, is marked clearly by the crime reports in India. So he did not know this tribe properly. He didn't know their life. So I would quote from official report about the crimes in Bastar, quote, while crime due to superstition is rampant all around the district, more or less in the same degree, the southern part of the state inhabited by Madhyas is subject to very heavy incidents of murders. And Osho says there is nothing, no crime there. And the tendency to commit murders is on the increase. Bastar leads the whole of Madhya Pradesh in murders and reduced to per thousand of population the figures in perhaps the highest in the country. So he finds a wrong example, which is actually the opposite. And the whole philosophy was based on this tribe's way of life as he imagined. Crime statistics of Bastar are also studied by experts. There were 16 murders in 1931 itself in that region. In 1951, there were 45 murders amongst one tribals. The upward trend has continued throughout 15 years, there were 144 murders in 1965. Most of them were limited to Madhya tribal community. This is a national crime report by the official Government of India report. Warrior Elvin, who studied the life of Basta tribes for more than 25 years, analyzed the case histories of a large number of murder and suicide cases. For this propensity of violence and murder, quote from him, he has listed a number of causes of contributing factors. The main causes described by him are marital infidelity. Look at that. Warrior Elvin very clearly says that the major cause of the discord between the people amongst Basta tribe is marital infidelity. Whereas Osho said that since they are sleeping with every girl or boy 3 days only, and they know everybody in the tribe sexually, and then they opted their partner or person who lives with them, there is no discord, there is no conflict, there is no marital problem. Where the Warrior Elvin study, who was there amongst this tribe for 25 years, he says that the major reason for the conflict and murders are based on marital infidelity, revenge, witchcraft, magic, fatigue, alcohol desire, etc. as the secondary ones. There is a calendar of movement of crime. Violence is at its peak in the month of March. They have their important festival during this time. They almost live on alcohol during this period, and out of revenge and jealous, if a girl refuses to sleep with a person and choose another person, it is enough reason for excitable temperament and violence or murder. About this festival, Osho writes, his quote, "They have a beautiful tradition that each year whatsoever you have accumulated, you have to distribute, and they have enough to enjoy. They work hard, they have healthy people, and nature supplies them more than needed." The idealization of the life of the Aboriginals of Basta to make his philosophy and finding the roots of his philosophy from their ways of life is the key to the Osho commune. But verifying facts was never important to him. When there was a complaint that he was quoting scriptures wrongly to suit the convenience of his arguments, there was a discourse on him. He said, quote from him, "Oh, that's possible. I'm not a scholar. And if sometimes it is correct, it's a miracle. It must be a coincidence. If it's correct, if it's a coincidence," quote unquote. On a specific question about a misquoting Bible, he said, well, this is another very famous quotation, "I'm more concerned with what happened to Jesus in his innermost core. It has happened to me, so I know what it is. When I'm saying anything, I'm not saying according to the Bible, but according to the Christ consciousness in me. So if sometimes you find that I'm not saying something correct according to Bible, then at least in your Bible you can add it. And it will be absolutely true. It is possible because I am a drunkard." That was Osho, the Bhagavan, the Rajneesh, in the right spirit and the best humor. The game to make people subhuman individuals as Osho wanted them to become before joining his commune is well narrated in the article by Swami Anand Koshan. He was taken to one of the underground group rooms. There were big pictures of Osho hanging on the walls. The leaders arrive. This is from one of his strongest disciples who was inside and writing about it. There were big pictures of Osho hanging on the walls. The leaders arrive. There are 3 or 12 participants. Great hostility was directed towards them. Participants attack him. He should refuse to fight. Even the aggression of the whole group should leave one cold and distant. Later, he would be allowed to attack others. Swami Anand Koshan, in his signed article published in Sannyas, that was the official journal of Osho, explains the process. In the afternoon, it's my turn with the vengeance. I provoke to contemplate my suffering. I attack one who attacked me yesterday. Go ahead. shouts the group. We are in the center of the circle. I jump on him, almost strangle him. He's impotent. I am on him until his hands scratch my face, coming close to my eyes. I throw him away. With knot of fear in my throat, I feel as I glimpse that I need to abandon in order to accept this mean. My cynicism, my roles, my defenses. This is one of the most glorified way of losing oneself by attacking each other. And the person who is receiving the attack should be silently accepting it. And you are totally beaten up by others. You can also beat up others. And that's where you are totally surrendering to the commune's rules. This is what is officially written in Sannyas. The function of the encounter group is further explained by Swami Ananda Tirtha in the interview in Sannyas. Again, another quote. Violence works. Nothing is ever said about violence in the encounter group. They come with the expectation of violence and they want it. Everyone has got violence. Practically everyone has got it and they are scared of it and they love it. The group that most people opt for Osho ashram is the Tantra group. Instead of violence, you have sex there. With a group of 16 or 20 people together, Swami Ananda Tirtha explains. This is again an article from Sannyas. And that's the same with sex. We can see an indication that something can be done and we can work with it to an extent, but we don't have to do it the whole thing because they can go to the Tantra group. The origins of Tanderism have to be traced to the fertility magic of the early agriculturalists. The love rituals of the Madhya tribe in Bastar is a living relic of the ancient tantric practices which has followed in the primitive agricultural economies. Agriculture was the discovery of women, and it is obvious that the initial stage of agricultural economy created a material conditions of the social supremacy of the female. The fundamentals of Tanderism and the rituals connected to it rest in the assumption that productivity of the nature can be enhanced or promoted by the initiation of human sexuality or productivity. Like Chinese Taoism, Indian Tanderism was basically magical sexual rituals. The close similarity between Taoism and Tanderism draws attention even to a possible interchange of ideas. Human fertility and the natural fertility is clearly connected in primitive tantric beliefs. The ritualistic Tanderism that developed later in India had certain social conditions influencing it. During a turbulent and critical stage of Indian history, when tribal settlements were ruthlessly exterminated by the expanding state powers, both Mahavira and Buddha tried to model their sanghas, means groups, on the basic principle of a tribal society. One has to remember that Mahavira and Buddha were born in an age where the tribal settlements were developing into bigger confederations. The collapse of tribal institutions and the drastic social transformation of that age paved way for new forces of justice and truth. The rise of new values ushered in by the state power perturbed the contemporaries of Mahavira and Buddha. Some of them tried to understand the problems in their own way. Purana and Pagoda thought, this is a quote from Devi Prasad Chattopadhyay's Ancient Indian Atheism. Purana and Pagoda thought that there was no difference between merit and demerit, between violence and non-violence. Ajita could not distinguish between the fools and the wise, for both were doomed to death, and Sanjaya preferred to stay silent since the deeply ingrained faith between the ideas were uprooted. Gosala, the leader of the Ajivakas, became a fatalist who was forced to believe that human activity could do nothing to change the course of events. Unlike the contemporaries, Mahavira and Buddha were concerned with the social and ethical problems of their times. They had a phase of dual requirement. On the other hand, in a new class society, they offered the oppressed society a suitable illusion of ancient tribal communism kind of thing, which was being trampled and undermined in reality. And on the other, they boosted some of the progressive features of the already established class society in public life and also rescued some of the beneficial aspects of tribal life. Quote from Devi Prasad Chattopadhyaya. This explains why a considerable number of contemporary aristocrats formed the front rank associates of Mahavira and Buddha. For practical reasons, some of the pre-Vedic ideas and practices had to be revived by Mahavira and Buddha. The cosmogony of Tanderism was thus revived. This theory assumes that human body and the earth have the same nature, and two are interlacing and interdependent. Devi Prasad Chattopadhyaya finds twofold corollaries in it. Devi Prasad Chattopadhyaya is the most authentic, most respected scholar of this period. Quote from Devi Prasad Chattopadhyaya. First, it should be possible to understand the mystery of nature if we can understand the mystery of human body. The Deha, or the material human body, is the microcosm of the universe. Secondly, the birth of the universe is the result of the same or a similar process as birth of the human beings. With all ignorance about nature as well as human body, cosmology turned into rituals pertaining to sexuality. Now, sexual rituals of Tanderism grew through the magical beliefs of ancient Hindus. Hindu Tanderism, in the Western, as it is understood generally, is purely the Vama Marg sect, which is explained by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. What is Tanderism? The founder of Arya Samaj, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, explains what is the Vama Marg sect and compare it with what Osho was trying to say. This is a quote from Swami Dayananda Saraswati explaining what is Vama Marg sect, the sect of Vama Marg, which is a tantric sect, and what is their practice. Quote from Swami Dayananda Saraswati. I will read it. The followers of Vama Marg worship a jar of wine placed upon the ground or a pedestal painted with a triangular, square or circular mark. They pronounce before it, quote, that's the mantra they have to pronounce. O wine, thou art free, the bond or curse of Brahma, unquote. Both men and women assemble in a secret place where none but believers of Vama Marg are allowed to come. There men worship a stark naked woman and the woman a similar man. Then in the meeting in which there are women related to men as wives, daughters, mothers, sisters, daughter-in-laws is placed on a globate of wine and a dish of flesh and cake. Their priest takes up the cup in his hand and mutters, I am Bacchus, I am Shiva. The translation of Dayananda Saraswati is used Bacchus, but in original also I've read that is I am Bhairava. Bacchus is the Greek god of alcohol. I am Bhairava, I am Shiva. And then quaffs it off. Then all others drink from the same unwashed cup. Then somebody's wife or a prostitute or a man is made naked and given a sword in the hand. Such a woman is called Devi and the man Mahadeva. The rest worship their generative organs. They are then given a cup of wine to drink, from which the others take their portion in several courses. Dayananda Saraswati's quote continues. I read it to understand what exactly was the tantric ritual. They repeat the course till drunk and promiscuously exhibit without regard to the sacredness of relationship and under the impulse of desire. If sometimes so happens that when much intoxicated they fight one another by boxing, kicking, pulling by hair or with shoes. They sometimes vomit there. Then whomsoever is adept and famous of omnivore among them eats up the vomit. This is quote from Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Rituals of Vamamarga still practiced in several Tantric groups in India. It's still practiced in Eastern Bihar, practiced in many parts of West Bengal, even now. Compare Vamamarga sexual rituals explained by Swami Dayananda Saraswati with a state of encounter group in Osho Ashram. This is what I explained was Vamamarga, the Tantric ritual, as explained by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Now this is from the official journal of Osho, and Ananta Koshan writes in Sannyas, quote, Naresh stops me and jumps on me with the fists clench and cries to Anam, the other leader, hold him. Totally surprised, I receive the first blow. I feel my adrenaline coming up. Mad with rage, I want to destroy everything. I throw him far away. With the note of fear on my throat, covered, you are giving up, shouts Asha, my Polish mother. Followed by a whole group, I am left alone in a corner in a state of bewildered astonishment. In the dark, Bhagavan's face appears. Osho appears. Quote. Swami Ananda Tirtha asserts the behavior pattern of encounter groups as follows. Here, quote, here we don't believe in any boundaries. I only send people to the encounter group when I see that they understand that they have to go beyond all boundaries. Boundaries of sex, boundaries of violence, anger, rage. They have to break all boundaries. That is the breakthrough, unquote. Then they can go to the Tantra group. And Bhagavan's, that's a quotation, he calls him Bhagavan. Bhagavan's going to send them to where they need to go. So they are not sent to the orgy session, which is known as the Tantra group. First they were sent to the violent group and beaten up, violence, and they have made submissive totally. And then you have to go through that to be totally submissive. Then they are taken to the next stage where they all wanted to go, to the Tantra group. And see, look at that. I mean, Osho was a good salesman. One had to pay for discourses and encounter groups. The promiscuity that he offered in the name of religion was attractive to many individuals obsessed with social and moral taboos unleashed by the Semitic religions. And they flocked at his ashram. In the name of freedom, he sold control on their freedom. In the name of non-possessiveness, he sold the tribal and tantric rituals of India to them. No wonder the commune of Bhagavan or Rajneesh or Osho grew richer and richer. But the very problems that prevail in the Madhya tribe, jealousy, violence, prejudices, paved the way for the decline of this new religion also. Organized Christianity and the Western political systems with the avowed policy of freedom of religion could not swallow this strange religion from India. No wonder their joint efforts catalyze the decline of the Osho religion in the Western countries. Now there is practically no Osho group existing in the Western part of the world. There have been a lot in the 70s and 80s and even in 90s. But now they are all in decline. I've sometimes met some people coming from the Osho background. They're all elder people thinking of the great memories about what they had in the past. But the Osho community still keeping on their ashram, totally different than the times of Osho. You know the history that, he had problems with Morarji Desai, during which there was a lot of tax cases from the backdated tax cases were coming, and he has gone to United States and tried to establish a center there, which was opposed by the local community, and there were several cases against the whole community. And Osho, if you know his personal background, as I told you, he has been a professor in the Jabalpur University, but when he got this new idea of setting up a commune, he had a friend, a distant relative, Ma Anand Sheila. She was much, much younger to him, and totally devoted to him and wanted. She was in great love with Osho. But what Osho and Ma Anand Sheela together established the whole commune, and the whole methods were invented by them. And they were both the beneficiaries of the whole thing. But when they have been in United States, one can see that they have fallen apart. The kind of accusations that they have used some bacteria to spread ailments in the community, and all these kind of accusations, or other weapons and all these kind of things, or narcotics used, where it was banned. All these accusations came because of the inner conflict between Osho and Ma Anand Sheela. Then later, Osho denounced Ma Anand Sheela, and he said every mistake is hers or something like that. She has gone to jail, and Osho tried to return from United States because he was deported because of all these narcotic cases and all. And he tried several countries, did not work, came to India, and eventually he died. Many of Osho's supporters believed that he was poisoned with thallium, and that was the reason for his death. But that was not confirmed. And Man Ananda Sheela has spent some years in jail, and she is now released. She still is a great lover. She still loves Osho, and she runs an old age home in Switzerland. And some people have met her, recently, and made some interviews also. And the empire has gone, but a new set of people have taken over what was existing in Pune. Now there they sell crystals and astrology and all these kind of superstitious things that India is notorious for. And still some people would come there. They would still have the Tantra sessions, but in a different format. And the Osho tradition has practically gone away, and the ashram still exists. The Osho religion had a great rise, and it has practically died. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, on this note, let's move on forward to the question answer round. Click on the hand raised tool icon for asking. I would like to invite Ashwati CK.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to ask the question. So, to Sanal sir, let me ask you very like a kind of what we say a very simple question, that why people in the West were actually influenced by Osho, because whatever he has been saying or he had said in those days were those hippie culture, or some people who were more close to the hippie culture, they could have got influence. So what is your take on this? What was the social context in that time that made people to follow Osho, and why after that all the scams and all now it has declined? So how do you make a comparison?
Thank you, Ashwati. That is one of the best questions possibly that should come. So why the Westerners have been interested in what Osho has been? It's a key question, because many people think that in the West there is promiscuity, there is freedom of sexuality, and whereas in India this could have, who could have been actually interested in what Osho spoke, or the kind of orgy sessions which he offered in the name of the Tantra session? But the people flocked were not Indians, but the Westerners, the tourists, and a lot of people who were excited about what he said. The reason is very simple. In the Western world, there are two sets of people. And all those people who went to Osho's ashram, if you look at their background, there are case studies about that. They were from very conservative families where Semitic value system was forcefully enforced on them. For example, if you're brought up in a very traditional Christian background, sexuality is a crime. What's the first sin? For many Christians, the first sin is sexuality itself. What's the forbidden fruit? That's sexuality itself. And taken sexuality as a kind of a sinful thing, many people have a bad consciousness in connection with sexuality. So that is one of the reasons that many people are still afraid of sexuality. And those people who were attracted to people like Osho, there were other communes also, existing in the same fashion. They were all coming from very suppressed families, suppressed religious education that they had. And they found, here is a society, they found the Western society, which, many people have a wrong idea that promiscuity also means that everybody is having sexuality with everyone. I mean, it is not like that. It's a question of people taking sexuality seriously and consenting adults, especially when you are in adolescence. You select your spouse and you have the freedom if both parties are mutually agreeing. That is now even in India. I mean, that is even accepted by the Supreme Court of India. But coming to the Western society, those people who are afraid of sexuality felt that they were suppressed. They found here is a religious sanction. It was the religion that made them afraid of sexuality. It was religion that gave them the feeling that it's a sinful act. It was the religion who asked for confession every time when you had some kind of sexuality which is not in the good books in Bible or a Jewish Old Testament. So when you felt always pressed with the kind of fear of sin, here is a new society, new kind of commune where this is not a sin. It's a relief for many people. It's an escape from the suppression of sexuality that was offered by the Semitic religions. If you see the number of people or the kind of people who go there, they were all from traditional conservative families where sexuality was suppressed and they were told that it was a sin. They found a new religion where the suppressed sexuality can be expressed without a fear of sin. That was the key. Thank you. That was a good question.
Okay, so I think we can move on to the next person. Now we have some Zoom user with us. I would unmute her.
Good evening. I heard about and I was here in States while he was deported from United States due to this kind of activities. But I didn't know exactly what was going on in this religion. Like you explained, there was multiple sex partners, different partners for 3 days, and they were beaten. They enjoyed that too. Then in that case, my question is, how honorable are the candidates to get a sexually transmitted illness? Then the next question is the arranged marriage or, the traditional dating marriage. Which marriage is more successful in your opinion? Then one more question. Who is this Osho who is responding in Facebook? Their responses seems to be valuable and it is with good values in it. Are these the same group of Osho people are responding to the post in Facebook? These are 3 questions.
Last question I cannot answer because I do not know about somebody with the name Osho, because Osho, Rajneesh, has died and he's no more. And if somebody has made a name Osho, that doesn't mean that. That's Osho. That could be something like somebody making a Facebook name like God and answering as a God. To all the prayers he would answer. So that's not a question that one can answer. Second thing, what you asked is, I didn't say that. Having multiple sex partners is not a question that was in the community. That's a different thing altogether. Many people may have multiple sex partners. That's a different thing altogether. That's not a crime. Though, if you are in a family, if you are in agreement with your partner, that may not be acceptable in the structure, but that's not a crime. People have the freedom to have multiple sex partners. So that's not what is practiced there. So what he has been doing was a kind of a group sexuality where 20 or 25 people are there, where you are absolutely free to be indulging with anybody. And that is called the Tantra session. But before that, you have to go through an encounter session. And where people are beaten up, each other people are beating up, and then they are made submissive, feminine, and then you are allowed to go to the other session. That was an attraction to a lot of people because the fear is taken off. That's what they're telling also. The fear is killed. The fear of what? Fear of the sinful feeling coming from their Semitic beliefs that they had. That sexuality is a sin for them. It's a bad thing for them. That is being killed in the first encounter session, and people were taken to this orgy session. The three partners case was coming from the story of the Bastar tribe. He takes his whole idea of this new way of living from the life of the people in the Bastar tribe, as making that as a model. In the tribe, they have a system that people, all the young people are living together, and they have to exchange partners. Not more than 3 days they can live with one person. They have to sexually experience all the people in the whole commune, and then in the big dormitory that they have. And after that, when people are together, they live together, and I mean that is the most ideal way of living. And there is no crime, there is no complaint, there is no adultery, violence. That's what he said. But factually, we have verified the facts, and it's not correct. The crime level in Bastar is the highest in the country, and this leads to jealousy, fights, complications, and there is systematic increase in the murder cases and conflict cases in Bastar. That's what it was coming. But here the 3 days issue was, even now it's practiced by the Bastar tribe in Madhya Pradesh amongst the young people who are coming up. So, and what is the best way of marriage? It's not a question for me to judge, because it's a question of people who are involved to decide. I would feel that freedom of the individual is the highest value that one has to respect. And in a marriage or in any relationship, the freedom of the person involved has to be respected. Any kind of relationship between two people should be based on mutual respect and mutual consent and mutual desire. That should be the key. And without having this deep feeling for each other, if there is any relationship, that is null and void, in my opinion. Even in a marriage, if there is no deeper desire, deeper love, deeper passion for each other, there is no meaning in such a relationship. If you have a relationship, even if it is not a marriage, and if it's deeper, if it's, emotionally satisfying you, and if you enjoy it, if you get the full pleasure of being together with the person, that is the most beautiful relationship. No matter what's the person, no matter what's the kind of background people have, no matter what kind of choices you have, it's between the two people involved, and nobody else has any business. And that's the most important value, that it's consenting adults, no matter from where they come, no matter from what caste or religion they belong to, no matter what nationality people have, no matter what age people have. But if people love each other, if they have a feeling for it, and they should have the freedom to do whatever they want. That's how I see it. Whether it's in a marriage or not in a marriage, there is no difference. That's my personal view, but it's a question of decision of people involved. It's their decision, their life. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, I did not finish. The number of infection, sexually transmitted illness in this, I like to know, do you have any report on it? Because as far as I know, people who have behaviors like that, they are coming up with illness like AIDS and other gonorrhea, syphilis. Where I live, regardless of what kind of clients we get, we always did check if they are sexually infected. And while I was acquiring visa to United States, they were checked, all the clients. I think it's still going on. Do you have sexually transmitted illness? If so, you didn't get a visa to come. So I like to know, in this tribe, there was any sexually transmitted illness reported?
There are reports and studies about that. These people, the Osho commune has been very careful about, about these kind of things. For example, if you join the commune, you have to bring a medical certificate. They are their own medical doctors, medical certificate that you don't have any sexually transmitted ailments. So it was before, the time of even AIDS or HIV. This was becoming as a commune. Even after that, they had to take later a Western blot test, the most advanced test for HIV, and all other tests excluding you from any sexually transmitted ailment. They were all asked to use condoms during this relationship. So that part, there was, I don't think there was a carelessness involved. There was no serious cases of sexually transmitted ailments in their relationships. This is well reported in sannyas also.
Oh, well, they were using condoms. That's why they didn't have illness. Okay, thank you. I didn't think of that. They were using birth control during this period. Thank you very much.
More than birth control, condoms are also used for protection from sexually transmitted ailments. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think we can move on to the next person now. We have Saptarshi Bhattacharya with us. So please proceed with the question.
Good evening, sir. So I have a few questions. Like during Rajneesh's time itself, there were many, cults at that time in US. Like there was one, I was reading about one cult known as Jim Jones People's Temple was there. Then there was some Heaven's Gate, and many of these cults had their, USP was that the world was coming to an end through some nuclear war or World War III, and those who join this cult will be saved. So nowadays we don't hear too much about end of world cult type of cult. Do you think is it because the Cold War has ended and the World War III is not the flavor of the time? This is my first question.
This question that many of the cults have been promoting the idea that a kind of selling with fear that the world is going to end. Armageddon is coming. So ancient Christianity also, there were many groups trying to sell this idea. If you know the history of the New Awakening movement, 1901, for example, the Pentecostal movement and other similar groups emerged. They were all telling about the ending of the world as a potential thing, and it's all soon. So world is going to end and Jesus is going to come and join, flock with us. This was a common idea which many groups promoted. Many cults and many sects were using this idea. And of course, Jim Jones has also been, claiming this. And when you know the story that, eventually when there were reports and there were public exposure of what was happening, it all ended that they have gone to Guyana and all of them collectively suicided, thinking that the death is imminent because the world is going to an end. There were other groups. 1960s, there was a very major group that claimed that the world is going to an end, and they all waited for that. And Daniel Dennett has made his famous idea about cognitive dissonance was coming with the study about these groups. He got report from people who were in the group who believed that the world would come to an end. They all believed, they seriously believed and waited for this day. And that's one of the ways that they would attract people in. But if the world does not end and they would not still leave the faith, that's the most important thing. The more time they invest to defend their faith, the more aggressive they become, closed in the shell of that faith. If you know, for example, the fanatic Christian or other groups like that, for example, if you take the Pentecostal movement as an example, it's not even a traditional Christianity, it's a new cult, but initially they have been speaking about Jesus coming again very soon. That was the primary slogan that they raised when they started in the United States. But eventually, they get people indulged in discussions and defending their faith and continuously keeping them awake and closing all information coming from outside and repeatedly feeding them day in and day out. This is a kind of brainwashing that they continue all the time. They cannot keep their people if they don't do this continuous brainwashing. And once this brainwashing is going on, they would really close their contact with reality. That is what is happening. So they would normally, the world coming to an end idea, when it fails, they would defend it more vigorously and find new ways of explaining it. So you are right. There were a lot of groups like that earlier. When the Falun Gong in China, they were also trying to see things in moon. There are other side of the moon. There are special creatures, and they are controlling everything through the fulcrum in your stomach, and all these kind of strange beliefs these people have. But these groups can survive only with these strange ideas that keeps them going. Yeah. Coming to the next question.
Second question, like you said, these are strange ideas. So my next question is actually connected to that only. So what did otherwise, sane careerist people like Parveen Babi and Vinod Khanna? Vinod Khanna, he was a big film star and he later became an MP, and he was also a union minister of state in Indian government. So I would understand, he's a sane person. What did they see in Rajneesh which other film stars didn't see, like Amitabh Bachchan or Dharmendra, they didn't see? And is it the fickle, you think it is the fickle environment of the film industry which they were operating in, which made them susceptible to Rajneesh's charm, or was it an individual choice? So
It
after
could
that,
be,
I will ask next question after this.
yeah, it could be an individual choice because, people probably when they have been growing in a suppressed mindset, they would feel these ideas of freedom, though it was not actually offering freedom, very attractive. So it may not be pure sexuality that people were drawn into, because the way he was speaking gave a feeling that he was offering a total freedom from everything. I mean, he even advocated freedom from education, freedom from studying, freedom from love. I mean, freedom from practically everything. Some people must have got involved in that. I mean, maybe they thought that it was a very attractive slogan. People can get attracted sometimes to strange things. But there was very senior, a lawyer who was visiting many times the Osho ashram and has been writing articles in defending them. Ramjat Malani has been writing articles defending their rights. I mean, that was another thing. Of course, I mean, during Morarji Desai's time, with his great Puritanism, he tried to suppress the whole commune out of his ideas about sexuality. But Ramjat Malani was one strong person who tried to defend them at that time. So people get interested, must be for private reasons also, their own perception about things. Thank you.
And then my final question is, do you think with changing times, the makeup of the gurus will change, but the gurus are always there in new avatar. They never cease. Like the evangelical pastors are always there in US. Then Zakir Naik, gurus like Dr. Zakir Naik, even Sadhguru or Sri Ravi Shankar, even Ramdev, or notorious gurus like Ram Rahim and Rampal. So times change, but the gurus always remain, because there will be some fault lines in the society which they always know how to exploit. So do you think society will never be able to get rid of these gurus?
Well, I mean, in general, some 10 to 13% of any given population, there are people who are susceptible to these kind of ideas, hypersensitive, hyper believing everything, which are offered to them. They are afraid to face the realities. They need a protection of a commune, of a shell, of a group, which is permanently telling them to remain in that group, and they are protected in the faith structure. So that is the key of the working of any of these gurus or cults or the faith groups also. The extreme radical faith groups also work like that. I mean, if you look at the case of the followers of Satya Sai Baba, he is no more now, but you see the following that a South Indian goddess, a god woman, namely Amma. There is a commune. There are people, brahmacharis, means celibates of a male and female background are living there. And there's a huge structure of a set of flats where devotees are staying, and there are permanent prayers. A lot of people are going there, and she has a huge following. With Satya Sai Baba's end, one thought that these kind of people are over in a large scale, but we have seen the growth of Amma at one side, Sri Ravi Shankar, and now, for example, Baba Ramdev is, not exactly like a guru, but he's trying to sell himself as a yoga master, and he's making a corporate empire at the other side. These all have different formats, but at the end of the day, as you rightly said, gurus come and gurus go, because there are always people who are available to be at the receiving end. So people are falling prey always, because there is a set of people who are vulnerable, who don't ask questions, who would just fall in prey to this belief system. Because once they are in, they are every day, every night, they get, kind of repeated education. They cannot come out. They bind them within that structure with great hopes and great expectations, and they are in that. So some people want it. These are kind of, I would say, dangerous groups if they're keeping people entangled in that and who cannot come out. But some of the gurus transform also. They adapt themselves to the new societies, and they see the questions and challenges against the past gurus and try to avoid them. For example, I never saw Sri Ravi Shankar offering a miracle, because after Satya Sai Baba, one would think that any guru would do that. Even Ravi Shankar's original master Guru of Transcendental Meditation, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. He was a teacher in his institution in the beginning. He offered miracles. He offered your capacity to elevate and fly. But his disciple, a teacher in his own institute, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar does not offer that. Instead, he sells another thing, which is an easy thing, way how to breathe. Sudarshana Kriya. He makes a special technique which is patented and which is not, you cannot argue that it was a miracle, but it's really humorous that one makes a technique to breathe and sells it properly. So gurus transform, they kind of evolve and adapt to the new situations.
One thing I was wondering actually right now when you are talking, when does a cult become a religion? Means how many followers should a cult have to become a religion?
Well, that's a good question. Normally, I would say that a cult writ large is a religion, and religion, if it's a smaller group, you can call it a cult. You have all the the fundamentals of a cult in a religion also, and you have everything that a religion follows in a cult also. For example, the Catholic Church, the biggest religion, as one single unit, they still believe that during their mass, the wine offered transforms into the blood of Jesus Christ, and a little bread piece is given, and it changes into the flesh of Jesus, and they think that they are eating the flesh of Jesus and drinking the blood of Jesus. Everyone believes it. So if people can get these kind of things believe, that's like a cult. It's only a cult writ large. It's a bigger cult.
Thank you. Thank you.